I just have had conviction for a while now that, it says in Ecclesiastes that making many books, there's no end. Like every day I look and there's a new book, and even a new Christian book. And man, I don't know about y'all, and Dick's writing a book, and books are good and everything, but like, I don't know who's reading all of them, because who has the time? I drove back from Destin yesterday, and got on the phone with my friend, and it's like, well, and I had to drive all the way there and all the way back this week, and I was able to listen to 2 Joe Rogan podcasts. That's it, because they're 4 hours long each. And I'm like, man, who has time to listen to this? And he makes one every day, I think, But a lot of information in the world. In fact, at this point, we don't need. I mean, we all have devices for information, so like information is no big deal. I mean, my daughter can look up something on the phone, so information is just everywhere. And now fact checking is getting really important, and trying to get sources and fact check and figure stuff out. But I think regardless of all that, like man, it's just confusing. It's really difficult. If you do everything the expert tell you to do, you're going to need like 40 hours in a day. And there's just studies like backing up everything, and there's research backing up everything, and it's just confusing. It's really hard. And even inside the scriptures, inside of Christianity, it's confusing. There's a lot of different camps. Dallas Willard says there's some 30,000 different denominations. Just that sort of pluralism. I mean, we're built on pluralism in North America, and so we have lots of different ideas. And now there's postmodern age. It's new age, and you can think anything, and it doesn't really matter anymore. And so there's all this. It's just a big blob of knowledge, and so like wisdom and stuff is sort of wading through that knowledge and figuring out how to wade through it. And but I just have always wondered, and maybe y'all have too, but any serious Christians study a lot. And at some point you start to say, like, why do we study so much? Like, what's up with the words? Like, words. I mean, for a long time, I put a lot of pressure on myself to read this book through once a year, to read through the book of Psalms every month, the book of Proverbs every month, because Billy Graham did that. And then Watchman Nee read the New Testament every month, so I tried to read the New Testament every month too. And so, and then my mentor, like a long time ago, he thought that God only met you if you woke up at 5 a.m. So like, I'll wake up at 5 a.m. every day and read the Bible basically like by candlelight. Like imagine I'm basically like some kind of like monk, like being a superstar that's going to win the world back. And I'm resentful at the whole time of everybody else that's not doing what I'm doing, because they wake up at 8. You know what I mean? And they go to bars at night. Like it was just like all weird and everything. And at some point I just thought, why is it so hard? And why is there so much study? And I'm studying so much, I'm writing all these things down, but am I retaining them? And are they actualizing? Are they finding their way into my life? And I think to this day it's still a problem for us as Christians, just because there's a lot to think about. And our existential problems make it really fun to think and to stay in the realm of thinking. And I like to think. I've spent a lot of time thinking, and my favorite thing to do is find a good friend, sit on the porch and talk about problems, talk about issues, talk about politics, talk about anything, and think about what that means and what it could mean and what it might mean for us and our kids, and think about how it relates to the Bible. And so all of us Christians are students of God and theology, the Bible, but we also have to be students of culture. And we're trying to put these things together, and we find ourselves in the middle of this. And if you're like me, you kind of binge purge. It's like, I'm way over here and it's all good. And then I'm like, no more of this. I'm going all the way over here. I'm binging and purging. So I'm all in on the Bible. I don't read anything else except the Bible and do what it says. And then I go back over here and I'm like, well, I don't know if it really matters anymore. And I'm just never finding balance. I'm never feeling like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm always looking over my shoulder like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? I feel like if I'm really honest, I start to think about my relationship with God, there's a lot of pressure. And it's like a lot of pressure and like a lot of like unspoken, like I just think I'm supposed to kinds of things. And then you get into the scripture and you can find sort of like a lot of different things to back up wherever you are. And so it's just really confusing. It's really difficult. And so what I have felt like I've needed to do personally is to really take a step back. And it started with daily prayer. Jesus says when you pray, pray like this. His disciples said, teach us how to pray. Luke 11:1, they did not know how to pray. So he gives them the Lord's Prayer. It's a template for prayer, but he says, give us this day our daily bread. And there's something about the Lord's Prayer that gets that focuses really in, like just focuses on today. And when you pray the Lord's Prayer, in a way, you're excluding all of the prayers for tomorrow and yesterday and all of those other prayers. And it focuses just on what's important today, and it helps you become present. And it seems like John and I talk about a lot about this, but it's not being said that maybe the end result of contemplation, end result of Christianity in this life is to come to a place where we can be fully present. Mm-hmm. And Richard Rohr would say a mature Christian is to see Christ in all things, in all people. A mature Christian is where you can see Jesus in all people, in all things, in all situations. You have to be present to be able to do that. And so we have to focus all of our theology and all of our concerns and all of our worries and everything has got to be boiled down into focus today. And if our religion is not serving this in this realm of today, then we need to really assess. Really, really assess. I have been messing with gardens. I have a little small garden. It's really pathetic. It's only half the size of this stage, but that's the only sunlight I have. And so somebody was asking me why I had it. I think my daughter was saying, well, why do you have it? And I was like, well, I wanted to grow one. And she's like, so it's for beauty and everything. I was like, yeah, I guess it is. But I have tomato plants in there, and really the plants are to grow the fruit. It's supposed to grow the fruit. Like if it doesn't grow the fruit, if there's never a flower or a fruit, then it's just plants. And I did the garden to grow something as an end result. We wanted something to come out of that. I just didn't do it for the process. There's a product at the end that I was looking for. And it seems like in the scriptures we can wade through them all. We can come up with lots of answers what God's trying to do. We can come up with lots of themes of what God's doing across the world. Love seems to be the theme. But we need to define the terms. And what does even love look like anymore? So any of this stuff gets really, really hard. There's a song, there's a scripture, John 15:6, where Jesus says this. He's talking about being the vine and the branches. And you know this verse. It's a very famous passage. In fact, maybe one of my favorite verses because it always cuts to the quick on what we're after. Jesus says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I remain in you, you'll bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. Just cuts right to it. And he says, if you do not remain in me, you're like a branch thrown away, rather such branch picked up on the road. I just gave you the wrong verse, Laura. 15:8. I wonder what 15:8 says. If this was our focus today, we'd have different focus, wouldn't we? 15:8 says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and you show yourself to be my disciples. So we ought to ask ourselves, what is the fruit of our faith? And you ought to ask yourself, I've been asking myself, man, what's the fruit of my faith? Hey, cross-culturally, if I go and I talk to somebody, what's the first thing you say? If I don't know somebody, if somebody comes in here and they're from Europe and we don't know each other, I'm going to go down the list. I'm going to say, well, I'm from the United States. I'm from Mississippi. I live in Tupelo. I've got a wife, a couple kids, got a dog and a cat. Work at a church. I like music. I like to bow hunt sometimes. You know, what else you want to know? Like, that's it, right? I didn't mention how I feel about any politics or that I'm a Christian or that I have convictions about X, Y, or Z. None of the deep parts of me are disclosed there. And so how much of our identity is really wrapped up in our Christianity is what I'm getting at. And which part of our Christianity is actually practical? I'm afraid that a lot of it stays in our head. A lot of it's staying there. And I think that we feel like it's safe to do that. And a lot of us are not sure how it ought to actualize in our lives. And so I just want us to maybe for a couple of weeks think very practically and think very practically about what it means to have Christian fruit and what that might look like to bear fruit. Jesus comes up to a fig tree and looks for figs on it one time. He doesn't find it. He curses the fig tree. It's the only miracle in the Bible that's considered negative. Everything else is like life-giving and positive. This one, it's like death-giving. It's negative. And a lot of people wonder, why did he curse the fig tree? And what does that symbolize? Well, at least a lot of people think that it symbolizes Israel. It was a tree that was protected and brought up to bear fruit, and it did it. And God comes to it and looks for fruit on it, doesn't find any. That was the purpose. And so it's impotent. And Jesus comes looking for fruit and doesn't find any at a time we're supposed to have fruit. It's impotent. He curses it instead. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And so I wonder how many of us living our lives are just dying on the vine because maybe we're not doing what we're supposed to do. or we're not benefiting from the faith that we want to benefit from, you know? And how much of it has to actually be actualized or assimilated into our everyday life. Okay, John 1, you've heard this before. It says, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, He was with God in the beginning, and without Him nothing was made that was made. He was the light of men, all this stuff. And it says, the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us, and we've seen His glory. We've seen it, okay? And He's full of grace and truth. And grace and truth, by the way, is the ingredients for growth. Grace means grace. It means gift. Truth means truth, which is hard. And so you give all truth and no grace, and it's just too hard. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. It's just too much. You give all grace, no truth, then it's just too easy. It's like sugar and no protein. You need grace and truth. And Jesus is full of grace and truth. That's why we love Jesus, because He's like the perfect marriage of grace and truth. He goes around and you're just like, I love you and I want to follow you. And it's hard at the same time, but I'm good with it. That's how Jesus is. But it says the Word becomes flesh. What is the miracle of Jesus? That He was God manifest in the flesh. So He comes and moves into the neighborhood, okay? All right? So the Word becomes flesh. And I've been thinking and reflecting, even on my job, even as Christians, the Christian books, the Christian knowledge, even this idea that we should study. I'm thinking, wow, we're trying to make the Word become Word again. It's like it became flesh, but we're trying to take Jesus and make Him into words. Think about that. It's kind of weird, isn't it? The Word becomes flesh, and it's supposed to become flesh in us. So like it's supposed to get from in here to in here, and like be here and out here. But that's too hard, I think, and too challenging. So we're just let's just make it into words again, and describe it in different ways, and make write-ups about it, and blurbs about it, and books about it. And you know what? That'll get success. That'll bring people in. It'll sell books. Most of the pastors that sell books, they end up falling over and having to retire on those book sales because they're disgraced. It has to manifest. It has to become flesh. So one of the ways that I've been working on doing this, one, I've already told you guys, personally, I'm trying to pray, give us this day our daily bread. And every 15, 20, 30 minutes, I'm trying to reconnect with God. I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me, here's a vine, there's a branch. You just remain. Well, how do you remain? Why do you remain? How do you remain? You stay. How do you stay? You stay. You keep. You stay. If you get off, you stay. You come back. You get off course, you come back. We went the wrong direction, you turn back around. And what happens is, even if we're good enough to wake up and spend some time and get our day started straight on the right trajectory, somebody cuts you off in traffic and my kids do something and this morning I'm up this is a true story, 5 a.m. having a good quiet time. My sweet Labrador retriever gets a whiff of something in the wind and he runs away. Man, this dog runs away every day. And I get so mad at him. I got so mad at him. I'm like, I'm going to disown this dog. I'm going to beat this dog. And it's just derailing me, right? So it doesn't take much. Well, how do I get back on? I have to get back on. I have to remain. So I have to say, God, I'm not walking by the fruit of your Spirit. I'm mad. I want to kill an animal that you love, that my daughters love. What's wrong here? It's not God. It's not reality. It's not the dog even. It's me. It's my attitude. It's my heart. And I think that the fruit of the Spirit, I've known this list a long time. If we aren't carrying them out, is there a problem? So let me just fruit of the Spirit real quick. And all I'm doing is really introducing this series. We're going to end here. But Paul's like, look, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. He's gone up, the beginning of this chapter is like, look, it's for freedom that Christ set you free. But don't go into a yoke of bondage. It's all about freedom and bondage. And he's like, but you're free to do all this stuff. In the fruit of the Spirit, the stuff that the Spirit's going to produce in your life is going to be this stuff. This stuff. And so to me, this is the evidence. Like if we look around on our tomato plants, we all see some little bitty tomatoes. Or maybe some big ones. Or something. But if our plant's not looking good, friends, we got to add some fertilizer. We got to get some sunlight. We got to dig around its roots and prune it. And all these horticultural analogies in Scripture, I think, are on purpose for us because it proves to us that it is a partnership of God and us working together. And a lot of Christians have got it wrong. We just lay ourselves in the sunlight. We're like, well, consider the lilies. And we're thinking like photosynthesis. I just sit here and it's just going to be downloaded into me. It's just going to work. And it doesn't work. And we die on the vine, right? Horticultural analogy is like, well, the farmer puts it in there and he waters it, he fertilizes, and then but then he also is relying on the miracle of God to cause it to grow, but he does the work too. And so I just think that God is wanting us to do that. How are we cultivating God? How are we exercising our spirits? Love, joy, peace, patience, all that stuff. Where is it in our lives? I was just reading about violence, and 1 million Americans are killed by violence a year, which seems small. It's only 350 million. 3 out of 4 children killed in the world happens in the United States by violent death. So we're the most violent nation in the world, it looks like, and we're one of the richest countries in the world. Definitely the most violent in the top 25. Okay. Like over half of our programming has violence in it. Even kids shows has violence in it. So we're violent, and if you eat violence all day, then it's gonna come out. It comes in, it comes out. So where is the love and the joy, and where is the wisdom? Where are we finding these things and allowing this fruit to grow in us? And that's where I want us to consider. A lot of this stuff has come from me. Because, and I brought this up earlier, because something will derail me like anger. And anger is serious. Now, anger means you care. There's a positive. But anger will ruin me. And it takes me like 25 minutes to recover. And that's a problem. And anger ain't on the list. So to me, I was like thinking, man, if I don't have love, joy, if I don't have the fruit of the Spirit, there's a problem. And where is that problem? And stuff like anger. I think that's what this is for. I got to start looking at this. Why do you keep getting angry? Most of the people in 12-step program are there because most people that drink, they'll tell you. And they're in 12-step, they're saying they were too angry. The anger brought them. And they had to figure out why they were angry. It's really serious. I look around, I see people angry. Road rage, anger, invective all over the news, everywhere. And I'm thinking, this is not the world that God wants. So there's got to be people somewhere that are cultivating a different type of fruit and passing it out, and that's supposed to be as Christians. And so all I want us to do for the next couple of weeks is to look at each one of these and to focus. We're going to get real small and tight. Let's just focus. Love. What is love? Love's hard, man. Like, we can't cover love today. And what would it mean to love? And what does it look like to love? What's hard love? Tough love? You know, there's a lot of Greek words for love, but we only have one love word in the English language for love. And we talk about it all the time. And it's supposed to make the world go round. It's supposed to be everything that we're all about. But, man, we've got to define the terms. And are we seeing that in our lives? And what's the opposite of love? And joy, and on and on and on. And I just think after a little bit of that time that we'll be able to see, man, like a plant, if there's something that's unhealthy, there's something that's off, just like the little thing, you take a picture now and it'll like evaluate and show you what you need to do to the plant. I just think that we ought to be looking around and saying, man, there's some health here. We don't have to be the biggest plant or the best plant or produce the most or do anything. But all we ought to be doing is looking around and saying, man, are my leaves green? Does it look, am I feeling good about being here? Are we headed somewhere? Is there purpose here? And I think God wants to add so much to that. But what is he cultivating in us? What is all this theology and knowledge and wisdom stuff supposed to be producing? The Word's becoming flesh. And I say, friends, it's great because next week, what are we going to do? We're going to go out and be flesh. We're going to get to work. Go and be servants. Go and be salt and light. Like, do it, right? Do it. Not be it, but do it. Or be it by doing it, but not just thinking about it. I always like Francis Chan, and this stuff's important. It kind of seems to trample on some stuff, but it might need to, because I think we grow up with funny stuff. Francis Chan tells a story of his telling his daughter to clean his room, and he goes in and she hasn't done it, but she said, "I did it in my heart, Dad." Mm-hmm. She was smart. She had heard her dad say it. He's like, "Oh wow, there's a difference. You can't do it in your heart, and not really, you know." And I'm just afraid that a lot of us, we're just moving on, and I'm the same way. It's like I've gotten a lot in my head, and I know how to think about stuff. But I'm not actualizing it out the way that I want to. And I feel like I just got to get it into smaller bite-sized pieces. you know. And again, I'm just thinking, I'm the vine, you're the branches. I'm trying to remain. How do I remain? Just with my time, just keeping close accounts with God. Just staying back, get back on track. Every 5, every 10, or 15 minutes, just pray again. And then I want to look at this list and I want to say, man, is the Spirit present in my life? If this stuff's here, it'll be there. And if it's not, is it God's fault? Because the sun shines and the rain comes. Have I cultivated the seeds? Am I plowing the ground? Am I going out there and saying, no, I want some joy. I want some peace. I'm looking for some peace. You can't look for peace and watch Law and Order Special Victims Unit all day. I mean, this is not peaceful. Just saying. Not saying, just saying. All right, that's all I have today, y'all. But read in it. Start thinking about love, joy, peace, patience. If you want to memorize it, it'd be a great one to memorize. Love, joy, peace, patience. I memorized it as a kid. It's good. We're going to look at that list real slow. What is joy? What is peace that surpasses all understanding? Why is gentleness important? Hey, in a culture of aggression, maybe gentleness is real important. So we're going to look at that stuff. That's all I have to say. Let me pray.